Hello from beautiful, lovely, historic Saugus, Massachusetts, site of the Saugus Iron Works, and a place that has some very interesting, albeit sad kind of history, backstory, something I know quite a bit about. And this place is a feast for the eyes in the autumn, so I thought, what the heck, we've got to come and we've got to do this. Been here a few times, but it's been a while, so thought I would bring you guys here and give you the lowdown. We're gonna check it out. The ironworks didn't become part of the National Park Service until 1968, after changing hands many times and having quite a dramatic past. But because it is a National Historic Site, it's got nice facilities like this gift shop. And I'm just now realizing that I've never actually been here when like this stuff's open. I've either come in the off season or just too late, which seems to be the story of my life. But I'll come back to this. We're gonna head in the museum and see what we can see. Wow, this is cool. This is like a whole thing. I'm glad we did this. Iron, of course, is essential for the making of a lot of things. I think that's kind of the point there. All right, yes, so part of the story here. John Winthrop the younger as in son of John Winthrop the first, set up this ironworks because most things were having to be imported from England and it was very, very expensive. And he saw a lot of natural resources in this area and knew that we could perhaps start producing some of our own iron, and he thought that it would be, industrious and make sense in the long run so that things would start to be, produced locally and not have to be imported and all the trouble that goes with that. So unfortunately, the problem with that is where to get labor, and that is kind of part of the sad story as we go along here. I'll explain to you what I mean. And this is kind of showing that to, tell the story of John Winthrop and the ironworks in the area, you have to go back to Plymouth Harbor, which if you guys want more information on that, you can watch my other vlog on Plymouth, Massachusetts, and kind of how we all got started here. But it is worth noting that, these were early English Puritan settlers, and the Massachusetts Bay Company was just being formed. Things were just starting to be developed as the area was seeing growth, and we were gonna, figure out how we were going to sustain ourselves. And he saw the ironworks as, part of the development of that, which I guess exhibits just talking about the first peoples that were here, the native population, and some evidence that they had left behind here. And then it's talking about the crisis in the form of wars that developed between the English settlers and the native population that was here. Some of the Indian Wars, King Philip's War, and things like that, which I've also talked about before in previous vlogs, pertinent to the area and just kind of the setup of the whole story that's going to be told here. And I'm really liking what I'm seeing so far, and the way that they have curated this little space is pretty cool. I didn't know that it was going to be like so involved. Like I said, I've actually never been inside this museum portion of the Saugus Iron Works, and it's impressive. It looks like they have one of the old historic markers they've brought inside here. Oh, a couple of them actually. That's neat. And if you come in here, you can watch a video. I will try to find, if I can find a link, I'll leave that in the description as well if I can find the link. Instead of drawing out bars of iron for the country's use, there was hammered out nothing but contention and lawsuits. Oh. So highlighting the need for our own innovation as far as this stuff goes. It's hard to see the reflection, but this is an example of how the slitting mill would have worked. Here we have an example. This is the Saugus wheel. I'm assuming remnants of the original, yes, water wheel. They have reconstructed it. We'll take you outside and show you that in a minute. And this all makes sense once I give you the backstory. These guys worked really, really hard. This was no joke work. So here we have a memorial in commemoration of the 300th anniversary of the settlement of the Scots war prisoners at Lynn and Braintree, the company undertaken of Ironworks in New England, because they were basically, you know, kidnapped, taken prisoner after the fall at the Battle of Dunbar, which we lost, or Scottish troops lost, or I should say Charles II lost. Oliver Cromwell was successful in that one, and they were taken prisoner and they were brought here. They eventually would earn their freedom, which to me, freedom is not something that needs to be earned. It's something that God gives you, that you're born with. But nevertheless, that is how it was. They were taken here forcibly, in some instances having to leave their old lives, sometimes wives and children, and start new lives. And they found out, and a lot of them actually even went to New Hampshire, Exeter, nearby where we live. A large number of them went and got new lives, became, you know, successful members of society. And if nothing else, I am appreciative of the fact that, you know, New Hampshire now has the highest Scottish population in the country. Woot woot. So there's that. But, you know, sometimes it came through a lot of sadness. And it was really, really hard work here. So a lot of what we look at is, you know, bittersweet. This was like, you know, a small little, if you want to call it, industrial revolution that took place here locally when Massachusetts and the nation really were just being formed. But, you know, it came at a price, and at a price to people that we are connected with. So this guy here, David Leslie, he gave it a go. David Leslie was an interesting character, though, because, you know, at certain times in his life, he kind of plays all sides early on, but then ultimately does decide to go against Cromwell and try to restore Charles II, rightful heir of the Stuart dynasty, to the throne, but without much success. So, yeah, Battle of Dunbar, tough. Not a good one, and the result was a lot of loss, a lot of death, and indentured servitude, and yeah, but definitely a very interesting piece of history, one that needs to be taught and remembered. Now, Charles II. Very interesting. He is actually Kay's grandfather. Yep. So you know how I always talk about how Scottish he is and all of his connections to things? Yes, literally direct descendant of Charles II, coming through that Stuart line. And Kay is distant cousins of Johnny Cash, and they share all these guys through the Cashel line of Scotland to the little village of Falkland. They share the Stuart line, and that is how he is cousins with Johnny Cash. And you know, it's such an interesting, tumultuous timeline to look at. It was a really hard time for the Scottish people, and it just went on. And you know, the next 100 years there, things would just continue to go downhill. You had a series of uprising, and eventually leading to the Jacobite uprising, and, you know, the Rising of 45, they called it, with the fall at Culloden. I've talked about this before a little bit in some of my other vlogs, I think. But things were never the same, and it kind of, you know, started from there. Okay, so like I said, this place is a feast for the eyes, especially this time of year. Here is kind of looking down on the park, the National Historic Site, and what they have this time of year is just extra pretty. So the museum and gift shop information center do close at 4 o'clock, but the grounds and trails around it are open, you know, dusk to dawn. So you can come, and it's a nice place to walk. Just gonna see what this perspective looks like here. Remember, I don't like heights, but okay, that's not so bad. Wow, I've seen more water in that before. Not so much today. But yeah, it's an interesting place. There is an interesting vibe here. You know, it was a place of hardship. it's interesting because you look at, you know, oftentimes through strife and difficulties, you know, can come great things. Okay, Spider-Man. That's the case here. And, you know, through necessity. Wow. But you have to admit that it's quite picturesque. So, and you can see that the park will be closing for the season again on October 31st. So June 1st to October 31st is when you can visit. And we are about 30 minutes north of, like, let's say downtown Boston. So if you are, you know, coming to Boston for any reason, this might be a historic site that you would want to easily come and visit. There's other things to see and do in the area as well. And it is, of course, designated, like I said, as a National Historic Site, so it's ran by the National Park Service. Which is nice. So it's, you know, taken care of, monitored, and they're here to answer your questions if you have any. You know, it's serious because I have this black and white pattern here. This happens to be the McFarlane morning tartan. Morning, not like AM. Morning, like mourning a loss. You know, I come here and I think about those guys that were taken, and I think about, wow, like, you know, sometimes you think of European history, you know, something from the 17th century as being like so long ago, but it really wasn't. And the way that it's intertwined with our history, and, you know, the fact that Scottish prisoners were taken from the Battle of Dunbar and they were brought here. I mean, in a way it's cool if you think like, wow, like to feel that connection to them and like see like real raw evidence of that, like the real stuff that's been left behind, and to be in their footsteps is like really amazing and really, really cool. Even though it's really, really sad, but I come here and I honor them, and I do it with a little bit of like indignance, like hey, you know, I like come here for them, and it's them that I think about. I just can't imagine what it would be like to be taken from your native homeland, fighting to restore your own crown, your monarchy, your government, your way of life, your religion, because these were Protestants, fighting after the National Covenant, trying to restore what was theirs, going back to their ways, and being plucked from everything you knew. And then if it wasn't bad enough that like you just got through this battle and you saw your friends and relatives die, you know, you're taken across the seas on a horrible voyage, sold into slavery, really, and you're brought here to this strange place called Massachusetts. So you see, this is just a very photogenic, although that very industrious looking building across there, we always joke about how like it's not the loveliest. But if you use your imagination and squint, you can be really taken by all of this. The discovery of a navigable river at a site which also offered timber and flowing water for power was cause for company investors and site planners to celebrate. Improved roads to the remote area did not exist in the 1600s. Transportation to the site with an important consideration. Hammersmith consumed tons of bog ore in Gabbro, each firing from the blast furnace. 3 company-owned boats loaded with iron flats, nail rod merchant spars, and cast iron products traveled 10 miles to Boston up other coastal tons, so they could come and load and offload through here. Like I said, there was more water, and it does, like, you can connect. Here you see the Saugus River would eventually go out into the harbor and out into the Atlantic, so it's interesting. Here we've got some water wheels. I think that's the blacksmith shop there. Looks like they're doing some work, some restoration. That's good. Can you hear the water? Can you guys believe that, like, throughout history, if you look at, like Oliver Cromwell was a dictator, really. And he succeeded. You know why? Because people followed him. People believed in his weird mission, and people were okay with it. And it's just like, you know, with the world wars and things, like, that's what it takes. Like, if people stand up, you know, these brave Scots, they tried. David Leslie's troops, they tried. And throughout time, man, you could still just get crushed, and it's like crazy. Like, that's the stuff that I think about, like, how does that even happen type of thing? You know, I think it's like a combination of, I didn't go in because they're already closing up. It's like not even really time, and they closed up early, which I guess they want to get out of here. Where was I going with that? Well, just that, you know, it's a moral decline. It's ideologies. It's people buying into people's crazy visions. And it can, like, ruin people's lives. But again, I'm still grateful. Even if, you know, these prisoners and, you know, other people, not everybody who worked here was a prisoner, but people did toil here. I'm grateful for them. Because, you know, part of our American story, no matter how it was built or who built it or who was in charge or what, like, something good did come out of it, and we've moved past that. We wouldn't take Scottish prisoners now. We wouldn't enslave people unless it's the government doing it in a different way, but it's not the literal enslavement that, you know, has gone before us. And I'm glad for that. So we've learned and moved on, and I think that's really the point. But again, just to be here and think of, like, that Scottish connection, and, you know, my son walking around, they were trying to restore his grandfather to the throne. Like, his grandfather. That's freaking crazy. I mean, Charles II isn't my grandfather. But through Kay, he is for the boys, so it's kind of epic. And that house that I showed at the beginning that I stood in front of, that belonged to John Appleton, and he was like one of the overseers. And that is a legit 17th century original building. Very common style. Kind of reminds me of some of the houses if you go to nearby Salem, just down the road here. Kind of what they call the quote-unquote Salem witch house. Very similar in style. Very common colonial Boston architecture. Definitely has the look. I've never seen this open, by the way. I don't think that they do open it, but I'm not sure. And so this really is considered the birthplace of the American iron industry. So, you know, in conjunction with the sadness of the hard work that the men forcibly were given, you know, the task of running all this stuff, like I said, it really did lead to something, which is often, you know, the case with our great American story. Here it's showing how it works. So you've got, you know, the Saugus River and big iron ore. I'm gonna start singing this song, Big Iron. Miners dug for most of the bog iron ore with picks and shovels. Imagine what hard work that would be. But they also used long-handled scoops and floating shovels to collect the ore from lakes and ponds in the bottom. Miners then loaded the ore into carts for shipment to the ironworks by land or water. Wood charcoal fueled the ironworks. The common lands of Lynn promised a seemingly inexhaustible store of virgin timber for charcoal manufacture. Night and day, colliers tended carefully laid up mounds of wood for up to 2 weeks. The finished charcoal was loaded into wagons and hauled for the ironworks or the coal house for storage until needed in the furnace or forge. I just want to point out here that it's kind of fun. They're spelling coal house in the Old English way. Fun fact, a lot of the American English words that we spell that are different, we can thank Noah Webster for that. When he created the Webster's Dictionary, he created a lot of Americanized versions of English words because he wanted us to be separate and different from our English counterparts that we, including him, Noah Webster, fought so hard to separate ourselves from. So that is why we have some language in common with many differences. Fun fact. These history adventures really turn up my appetite, so we stopped at our favorite place, Cherry Farm Creamery, because we desperately needed ice cream and are excited about spoiling our dinners. And I love this place because they have a ton of vegan options. Not because I'm vegan, but because I am lactose intolerant and I can eat their ice cream and it is amazing. The thing that's nice is they are open all year, so it's not another case for seasonal, and they are open late. And we've never had anything bad here. And like I said, if you have allergies, food allergies, they even have some things that have like gluten-free if you're gluten sensitive. So good time. The thing is, if you're lucky enough to find lactose-free or vegan ice cream at places, usually they're just very basic flavors, or maybe they have one flavor, but here they always have a lot. And today one of the featured flavors is s'mores. And I love s'mores and I love marshmallow, so great way to wrap things up. Of course, really good. The review is in. It's really good. All right, guys. Well, like Patrick Henry, of course, I know no way of judging the future by the past. My hair is crazy in the wind. I hope that you had a good time. I don't know if fun is the right word, looking at the Saugus Iron Works, but you know, the ice cream helps to sweeten the little bit of low mood after walking a place that was basically built by Scottish enslavement. But it's very interesting. Highly recommend a visit. It is very eye-opening, and if nothing else, it's a beautiful spot. And, you know, so many things to see and do in this area. Always something going on. Always a new place to visit. That's a really good one, like I said, especially if you're in the Boston area. Easy to get to. So I do recommend that. I will leave some links in the description. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks for all the love. Go ahead, like, share, and subscribe. Really, really appreciate it. And we will see you soon with more adventures. Bye. And a little history lesson on ice cream. My son just reminded me. Created by Mongolians. He said, "Thank you, Mongolians." And I was like, "What do you mean?" I was confused for a minute. And he had to tell me, he's laughing. He's over here laughing at me. That Mongolians invented ice cream. You know who loved ice cream? George Washington. He liked vanilla ice cream. Just saying.